Today on Riffs, Beards, and Gear, we check out the all-new GroveBass MIDI bass plugin from Submission Audio. The market for MIDI bass plugins has exploded in recent years, but that also means they are getting better and better sounding. And in my mind, for me, for my money, for my mixes, Submission Audio are generally my go-to MIDI bass plugins. They're throaty, they're gritty, they sound great in a mix, and I just have to do so little to them. I'm lazy, guys. I'm lazy, and GroveBass, the newest addition to the MIDI bass collection from Submission Audio, allows me to be even lazier. Now, before we go any further, you can consider this a sponsored video, as Submission Audio has asked me to show you GroveBass. However, I will asterisk that and tell you that I'm a longtime user and fan of Submission Audio anyway, and I would be doing this video even if they didn't ask me to do it. So with that, let's dive in, shall we? So what is GroveBass? Well, GroveBass is the signature plugin from Simon Grove, who's played with and plays for Plini, he's played for Intervals, Nick Johnston, many other artists. I actually got to play a show with Intervals with my old band back in, I think it was 2016 or something like that. Simon had one of the best bass tones I have ever heard in my entire life, and was honestly one of the nicest guys I have ever had the pleasure of meeting. A true gentleman through and through, and man, that guy really shreds. I can think of no one more deserving of a signature MIDI bass plugin than Simon. Now, GroveBass is a whole new frontier for Submission Audio, but before we get into that, let's hear this thing in a mix, shall we? Okay, so now that you've heard GroveBass in a mix, let's dive in a little bit to the actual plugin itself. Now, right away, when I bring GroveBass up, you will notice that this is visually, this is a little different than traditionally what Submission Audio is kind of known for. Normally, there's the super loud, you know, cartoony graphic, or there's something just very like in your face. For me, this interface, this GUI, this GUI, if I may, is giving me a glass of champagne while also offering me a nice seat on a leather couch. Like, that's what this says to me. This is classy, and honestly, visually, this goes perfectly with the tone of this plugin. So you've heard the whole mix. Let's go ahead and pull everything out and just solo the bass so you can hear what this thing actually sounds like. Love that last part. All right, so right off the bat, you will notice that there are 5 different tonal modes for GroveBass. Now, there is a mixer section, which is a first for Submission Audio, and depending on what mode you're in, these options are going to be a little different. Now, with the DI, if I click on mixer, it's the DI. I don't have any options. I don't have any effects or drive or tone or compression or anything like that. It's a DI. This is if I would want to use a, a bass amp plugin. I could even DI this out and reamp it into a real bass amp if I wanted to. This is the DI. This is the raw tone. And this is what the DI tone sounds like. Sounds like a DI tone. Next, we have a clean tone. Now, going into the mixer, now we have some options unlocked. We have a bright switch, we have a tone control, a compression, and a girth. And this is just fantastic sounding. Very clean, kind of Sans and Barbie ish, kind of, but it sounds like this. All right, so next let's move on to the overdrive mode. Normally, I like a more distorted bass tone. In the context of this mix, I actually liked the overdrive tone. It just sat better, and I wouldn't normally gravitate towards a lighter overdrive bass tone. I would get a more aggressive tone. This worked perfectly for the context of this mix. Now, notice we have a drive option unlocked, but we do not have an effects option unlocked for the overdrive. I'm gonna play with these while I play back through the overdrive setting. So next, let's go over to the distortion setting. This is a nasty, aggressive setting, and it sounds great. The drives, I like how dry the drive setting can be. Let's check this out. And then for you crazy cats out there is a lead setting. Now this is when the effects is going to be unlocked in the mixer, which sounds nuts. There's like a little bit of flange, a little bit of reverb or something. I'm not really sure what that is. I would never have a normal use for that. However, some of you may be doing some wild things musically. GroveBass is here for it. Now, something cool I want to point out with GroveBass is they sampled every note on every fret, meaning that, for example, this note right here on the low string, like a real bass, is not quite exactly in tune and sounds different from its corresponding note here on the next string up. I thought that was really interesting. So for example, so if you don't want the high notes to be poking, if in real life, if you would play up high on the neck, you can do that with GroveBass. I thought that was a pretty brilliant feature and one I don't think I've seen before. Now, under settings, we have a key switch map. You can do ghost popping, harmonics, hammer on, pull off, tapping. I can't even, my mind melts when I think of sampling tapping. Ghost notes, all sorts of stuff. The force on which you want for each different string, and a bass tuning default. So you can put this bass in a drop tuning, drop D tuning, drop whatever tuning to correspond visually with a real life bass if you want. Okay, so what does that all mean? Well, to show you in context what GroveBass can do, I'm going to play a mix of a song that I had nothing to do with. Jake Howsam, Lowe, and Simon Grove were gracious enough to put together this track. Simon did all of the MIDI, and we're gonna play this, and I'm gonna show you exactly what GroveBass can do. GroveBass is gonna flex. Check this out. So the tone here is pretty subjective. It's really whatever you would want to do in this context. Let's go ahead. I typically like a slightly gritty bass tone, but let's see how this sounds with a totally clean bass tone, shall we? One more time with the clean tone. And thus concludes the flex from GroveBass. Humanize is so you can humanize within a particular, this is basically the position in humanize. This position is acting like a capo. And this humanize is basically doing just that. It's humanizing your playing. It's kind of randomizing the velocity a little bit. But this position I thought was really, really cool. And I've never seen that before. It's basically like a movable capo on a bass. Never seen that either. And lastly, the alternate picking section has the usual note divisions, half, quarter, eighth, and 16th. However, Submission Audio recommends that you have it on automatic. And yeah, I think at the time of this filming, its introductory price is I think $119, which is $20 off what it normally costs. I will link down below in the description. If you would like to check out GroveBass, honestly, this is probably my favorite MIDI bass plugin I have ever used. Honestly, I'm not just saying that. I've actually been using this for several weeks now, and it is just fantabulous. It gets the chef's kiss. Mwah. Well done, Submission Audio. Well done, Simon. Nicely done. You've been wonderful. I've been Fluff. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. If you liked the video you just watched, please consider subscribing. And if you want to further support me and what I do, consider using some of the affiliate links down below in the description of this video. Go on over to Sweetwater, buy yourself something, and help me out at the same time. It's a win-win for both of us.